Welcome to GS Podcast number 112. I'm Stephen Knight. I hope you're well. Very pleased and excited to be bringing Ricky Gervais back to the podcast for you. I truly think this is one of his best interviews, if I do say so myself. Not because of me in any way, but I think just the way he answers the questions. You can always rely on Ricky to tell you what he thinks. He's not talking in sound bites. He's gives some incredibly thoughtful answers on this show, so I'm really excited for you to hear it and let me know what you think. We'll be talking about his new stand-up, Humanity, which lands on Netflix on March 13th, and I think it's his best one yet. I've seen all his stand-ups numerous times. This is a little different. It's I'd say it's more pure. We talk about this on the podcast a bit, but it's just him and a microphone. In the past he's used slides, he's brought the Bible to the stage, props, various things like that. This time it's him talking, and it's his best. I think it's his best. So we'll be talking about comedy in general, current climate in terms of what you can and can't say, how much social media plays into that, and I really enjoyed it. It's quite difficult to overstate how much his comedy's affected in me personally, really, come to think of it. I remember seeing Animals, and that came out in 2003, so I would have been 19, and he does this amazing routine where he brings the Bible out onto stage and deconstructs it, and I'm sure you've all seen this, and it was the first time I really thought, not only are you allowed to mock religion, but you probably should, really, given the power and influence it commands in global societies. So that kind of changed me from someone who would kind of take the piss out of religion in private with friends to somebody who spends most of their time doing it. Now, it's a very powerful tool, comedy. If you can say something important, that's incredibly powerful. If you can say something important and make it funny, the possibilities are endless, really. So I've been very fortunate in the way I started out, just sending tweets and writing and podcasting, just to have someone like Ricky point people in my direction and give me an audience. So I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I'm very pleased to be bringing you this conversation. Do me a favour, if you've enjoyed it, let Ricky know. He gave up his free time to do this in between the 9 projects he's probably got on the go, and there's nothing in it for him, really. He doesn't get paid. There's nothing in it for him. So in my naive ambition to engender a more positive use of social media, just let him know you've enjoyed hearing him. It always makes a difference hearing somebody say thank you and well done. You can find him obviously at Ricky Gervais, and definitely watch Humanity on March 13th on Netflix. Quick reminder, this is a completely audience-supported podcast, and if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/gspellchecker, and my wonderful Patreon supporters would have had access to this episode a little earlier than the standard release, just as a small thank you for how wonderful you are. You can keep up to date on the podcast at gspellchecker.com. Enjoy! There's a word that some folks find real hard to spell, ain't it? Except after saying, who cared to go burn in hell? But then along came a man, a spell-check across the God of creed, and he set out upon a noble quest to help those that don't know what it means, and he said, and go A-C-H-E-I-S-T, and don't you put that I before that E. A-C-H-E-I-S-T, don't mean we don't speak to double E. And he keeps telling out these godless say, a reason sharp as a knife will make him run away, but if it's not that fight, well, he can go all day. Spell checker, he's a god, spell checker, now you know how it goes, I sing along with me. A-C-H-E-I-S-T, 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 A-C-H-E-I-S-T. It's a great pleasure to welcome back Ricky Gervais to the podcast. Ricky, how are you?
Good, thanks. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Really looking forward to watching Humanity again in March. I came to see you in Manchester in July, so it'll be interesting to see what made the final edit, but maybe you could tell me a little bit about why you chose Humanity this time.
Well, the title came before it got very apt and zeitgeisty the last year or so. I had the title, I don't know, 3 years ago, and I had notes, a bag of notes over the last few years, and the 7-year gap between this and my last one was sort of circumstance. It just happened. It wasn't planned. It was, things came along. And I guess the reason was that I always considered stand-up like the second or third string to my bow. I thought I was a writer-director, occasionally an actor, whatever. And it gets pushed back, But now, after this tour, that's changed around. It's my main job. I want to be a stand-up now until I die, and it comes first. In fact, I'm writing and directing a new show, and I'm loving it, but I'm thinking I can't wait to do another stand-up tour after this for so many reasons. I think I'm good at it now. It took me 15 years, which shouldn't be a revelation that it takes 15 years to get good at something. But looking back, my other shows, they're in the ballpark. They're pretty good, actually. I don't regret any. In fact, I look back at some of it. They were fine. But there's something about this one where I became a stand-up in my outlook and my attitude. It's difficult to explain, and I'm probably the only one in the world that notices it or feels it. But I approached it differently. The first 4 tours in Britain, I sort of approached them like a writer doing a TV show or an Edinburgh show. I wrote the show. There was a narrative. There was surprises. It was multimedia. There was this and that and videos and trying to explain things on a theme. And then I went out and I did it confidently, like an actor would do, playing the role of a stand-up comedian, if that makes sense. This time I wandered out on stage with some things written on the back of my hand, and it really grew organically. And it ends up near the same place, but everything is much more worked in. Because when you write the idea, you sort of stick by it a bit, and you do it, you're a curmudgeon. You go, no, this will work. I'll make it work. Whereas if you just go out there and see what works, it's like evolution by natural selection. The audience choose the best bits. They're in on the writing process almost. It's very different to writing a sitcom or a movie. With that, you do your best. You take your best guess. You put it out there, and that's it. You can't change it. Whereas stand-up, it's almost more like a science than an art, because it either works or it doesn't, and immediately. You can improve it, and it does, But I just approached it very, very differently. And the other reason I think it's my favourite, and it's the best I've done, is because having been around for 15 years and doing this sort of thing, the audience know me better, so I don't have to keep explaining the joke or winking heavily with irony. It's like they're 10,000 of my closest friends. With mates, you don't keep going, I'm only joking. No, that was ironic. So I've got to the point now where you can hit the ground running. Everyone gets what you're doing, so you cut to the chase more. And I think, in a way, in this, I go a lot further. I confront offence a lot more. I even warn them I'm going to say things that might offend some people. I almost challenge them not to be offended. I challenge them not to not get the joke, in a way. So I think it's more mature, but it allows me to go even further, because they're on side and they get it.
I think it's really interesting what you said there about democratizing it a little bit, vibing off what the audience reacts to, and then you can kind of hone your act in a sense. And I wondered maybe if you ever written like a joke that you thought, this is going to kill, this is brilliant, and it's not landed, and then you've tweaked it and it's still not landed. Do you reach a point where you chuck it out, or do you just kind of go with, well, I know best? Well,
I do. You do things intuitively. When it's your job, or even when it's your hobby, or when you're the type of person I am, I've always done this. I've realised in retrospect that I was always honing my craft to be a comedian. I just didn't know it at the time. So, I think I've spent 50 years working on being a comedian. I just wasn't being paid for it for the first 40. So everything you do, it sort of hits because you're a comedian. You sort of know what you're doing, But yeah, there are things, and sometimes you don't know why something hits or doesn't hit. I get an unexpected laugh, and I have to work out in retrospect. Now, why did they laugh there? Was it a turn of phrase? Did I do something with my hands? Was it what I'd said before? Did I think it's a callback? Sometimes you just don't know.
Jesus, you're being funny by accident now.
It's funny by accident, but as I say, it's like the Arnold Palmer thing when he did a chip shot and it went in the hole, and someone said, lucky, and he said, yeah, and the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
So, the more you're in the zone, the more your accidents are good, because your accidents, they're happening because your brain's doing things. When you're good at something or practice something or constantly do something, or your brain sometimes doesn't even tell you, doesn't even bother telling you what it's doing. It just works. Just the little turns of phrase that you don't even know you're saying. Just things you do with your hands that you don't realise until you look back on the video and, oh yeah, I did the thing with my, your non-verbal language doesn't bother you sometimes. It just happens. And if everything you do is honed to be funny, sometimes you're funny without trying, and yeah, sometimes I've sort of, looked at it and I've worked on it. I thought, this is a great joke for some reason. You do it and you think, why don't they think it's a great joke? Right? There's only a certain amount you can go with. These 5,000 people are all idiots. So you have to work on it. And a good example was I had a bit that I thought was brilliant. Right, as an ex-philosopher, I thought, oh, this is really highbrow, right? And it was the idea of people say, Hitler was influenced by Nietzsche. A little knowledge is a bad thing, and I worked on that, and I said, apparently Hitler was influenced by Man and Superman, and I do this thing where I say, he was in awe of Nietzsche, and imagine him inviting Nietzsche around and saying, "Oh, I loved your book, loved your philosophy, Nietzsche. Not all men are equal. Kill all the Jews." And Nietzsche, sorry, kill all the Jews. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I didn't say that." And Hitler goes, "No, I read between the lines." And Nietzsche goes, "No, I didn't even mean that. What you?" So I do this, and I thought this was brilliant, right? And it was sort of and then one day, I just acted out Hitler being told off like a child. And it came to life, just in being, you haven't been killing Jews, have you? And it goes, I've got to go. That's my mum calling. Just doing things like him being on the back foot. So what they were seeing was, they didn't care about the truth of it or the history or how clever it was. They just saw the worst human being that has ever lived being told off by a philosopher. So it was more visceral almost. Again, you can intellectualize too much, and sometimes people just want to see you acting out being a dog because it's funny. It's almost cheating. I try and act out everything, and I've had most success when I sort of personify animals because it's irresistible. The reason why trying to work out what a dog's thinking is so funny is because they're not thinking that. They're not. We're imposing our, as some would say, greater intellect upon them, and that's why it's funny. So I think if you can bring something to life and act it out, it elevates it. Words are good, semantics are great, but if you then put another layer to act this out as a little play, oh my God, it's so much better. And I say you do that on every level with your body language, leaning forward, opening your eyes, raising your eyebrows. They're all exclamation marks. They're all your own laughter track. They're all accentuating the punchline. They're all doing things. They're all doing lots of things. And as I say, sometimes you do them and realise in retrospect. So it's difficult to know why something's funny until it is, and that's why it is. It's just so hard to explain.
One of the things that you spend a bit of time talking about in humanity is social media, and that's something that just wouldn't have come up in the past for obvious reasons. And I'm just linking that back to what you're saying about a nod and a wink and gesticulation and things like that. A lot of that nuance is lost when somebody tweets what they've seen in a joke, or what when they do write a review of a gig. And is it harder or easier now for a comedian?
Well, there's different things, isn't there? There's jokes that work because of the words.
Yes.
A pun works because of the words, and often one-liners that are beautifully crafted. These one-liner merchants that do it. The joke is as good as if you read it yourself. So you've almost taken out the performance. Some comedians are as good with the sound down, and some are as good without the visuals. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It depends whether you're dealing in words or vision and body language, and you want a bit of both. But I'm not a fan of it just being the syntax and the semantics, even though there's a poetry in a one line. I don't do them very often. I prefer the emotional connection to a story. I don't think you can't beat that. If you go to see, it's like seeing maths work. You go and you see someone who's brilliant at doing puns, right? And there'll be 50 puns, and each one's got to be slightly better than the last in a way. Otherwise, you don't laugh. And after 20 minutes, you're going, well, this is great, and I'm laughing, but you're looking at your watch. Whereas if someone's telling you a story, there's nothing like connection between one human being telling another human being what a crap day they've had. Narrative keeps you hooked forever. And so I always try and build in a little bit of that. And you do that with, anecdotes. You're not allowed to just tell an anecdote. You have to be added value. Otherwise, you might as well tell someone else's jokes. I remember seeing Jim Davison live on some sort of DVD, and he kept going, my mate Jethro's got a great joke. And he'd tell it, and he'd get a big laugh, and I was going, well, let's get Jethro on.
Cut out the middleman.
Yeah. So you're allowed to, tell a funny story. You're not really allowed to tell someone else's joke unless there's a reason for it. There's a higher narrative, right? But you're allowed to tell what your granddad said or a bus driver said, but you've still got to do something with it. There's got to be a reason. Otherwise, you just might as it is like saying is something someone else said that was funny. There has to be a reason for it. You have to end up in the duck pond. You have to be the butt of the joke, or someone does, or there has to be a twist, or but there's nothing more compelling than telling a real story. And I'm obsessed with realism and honesty. In fact, I lose some jokes that aren't true, that are sucker punches or a bit surreal or something, or because I think it's a good line, but do they think the other things I've said are story, made up stories? So I cut out things that might interfere with their perception of the truth. I did on this one I did an early one-liner, and it was a sort of a sucker punch. I said, I have a bit of bad news today. A friend of mine committed suicide. He just went up and to the bathroom and swallowed everything in the bathroom cabinet. He choked on a tampon. Right? Now, it's a good joke, right? But everyone instantly knows that's not true.
Yes.
And it worried me. I don't do many of those one-liners. I've probably written 3 or 4 in my life. But I lost it because I didn't want people to think, right, well, no, that didn't happen. That's not like you.
That's really interesting, because if that was me, I'd be inventing relatives that I didn't have and houses that I didn't own just for the sake of material.
Well, you're allowed to, I often change the names to protect the innocent.
Right.
So I don't mean I give away state secrets, and I still, I do want there to be. If I say it's a true story, it is. If I say it's a real person, it is. I might have changed the name. And obviously, this one is probably people think the most honest, because I actually talk about my family, and I don't make up the names. But again, I've checked with them, and I made sure it was wasn't embarrassing for them or anything. I'm not one of these comedians that think I'm allowed to say what I want about anyone. Well, you are, but everyone's allowed to think you're an arsehole as well. Do you know what I mean?
Makes for awkward Christmas dinners, I would imagine.
Well, of course. Some people think, well, no, this joke is more important than my uncle being embarrassed socially. No, it's not.
Well, I mean, when I came to see you in July, you did a deconstruction of the Golden Globes, Caitlyn Jenner controversy, I suppose. I think overreaction is probably a better word. And although I think people who understand and are intelligent and are acting in good faith understand that joke's about somebody who happens to be a transgender person rather than transgenderism. But I mean, even though we're clear on that, the amount of backlash you got from that can't be pleasant. And by kind of stirring that nest again in your new stand-up, is there ever a part of you that thinks, I'm right here and this makes sense and it's funny, but it's just not worth the outrage it's going to inspire?
Oh, I see what you mean. That's a very good point. I think I work with a rough equation that I think the more contentious, the more inflammatory, the more taboo, the more sensitive a subject is, the better the joke's got to be.
Right.
And the cleverer you've got to be about it, and the less ambiguous you've got to be about the morality of it, and the clearer the target has to be, whatever the subject. And in this one, I talk about the most contentious subjects I've ever talked about, really, that I've discussed. I've done jokes about all the subjects before, but this is the first one I actually confront people why it's okay to make a joke about any subject. But it depends on the target. When James Corden got in trouble for doing a joke about the sexual abuse in Hollywood, my problem with it wasn't very good. He bounced out in this light entertainment way and tried to be edgy for a minute, and it backfired because it wasn't good enough and he hadn't thought it through. I want to say I do this for a living. I want to say after when I do these jokes, I want to say, but don't try this at home. And people say, I've heard it, people say, why is he getting in trouble and Ricky Gervais gets away with it? I want to go, I'm not getting away with it. I'm doing something very different. Don't lump me in with these people. I don't mean James now, but I mean, if there are some comedians that try to offend. I don't try to offend. I'd rather talk about it. It's like, it's so funny. I've heard people on the radio, like quite intelligent people, talking about after I've said something offensive, so-called offensive, and they're saying, should we even, should we joke about that? I go, well, hold on, you're discussing it, so why can't I? I just discussed it in the form of a joke. Mine's quicker and funnier. You're saying all these words in an intelligent discussion, as you should, and I'm doing it in a different way. I think comedians get accused of being flippant about it because there's a punchline, and that's not necessarily true. It depends. It's like journalists ask me, "Is there anything you wouldn't joke about?" And I say, "Well, is there anything you wouldn't write about?" It's an odd question. They say, "Well, no, there's nothing I wouldn't write about. It depends on what I write." I go, "Exactly. That's exactly right. It's not the subject. The subject is irrelevant just because it's taboo. It's taboo because no one's talked about it, So it is all about the actual target, the joke, what side you're coming down on, etc. and it is a minefield, but it's only a minefield because not everyone's going to get it or like it. Another case in point, people get offended. I've said, when they mistake the subject of the joke with the actual target. People also get offended. I do a throwaway line about the Golden Globes when I say, everyone's a blogger. Everyone goes, I was offended. Why? He said an horrible thing. He said loads of horrible things. Yeah, but that was a thing that I care about. And that's a really important point. I know I throw it away, but it's a really important point because the number of times I've got letters from people saying, I enjoyed your show. It was brilliant. I didn't like the joke about, ME. I've got ME. I go, did you like the joke about cancer and famine and AIDS? Well, yeah, I know. Well, there you go. There's a thing that I confront in the actual show where someone says to me, you should never make jokes about food allergies. And I sent back, I make jokes about, AIDS, cancer, famine, and the Holocaust. And she sent back, yes, but the Holocaust didn't kill children. So this is the sort of thing you're dealing with when people let their emotions, overrule logic. Because, and I understand it as well. I get it. I got a letter from a Jewish society saying we enjoyed your show. We didn't appreciate joking about Anne Frank. It's a very sensitive. I get once again. I said, but did you get the irony when I was talking about famine and cancer and AIDS and disability? I go, yeah, and they went, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. And I go, these aren't my real views. I'm playing an idiot. There's loads of reasons why all jokes are different as well, but you have to look at the joke. Every nuance, every word, every setup, it counts towards something. And it is easy to be offended about your thing. I get it, because, offence is about feelings and feelings are personal. And I get why people, it's not that they're going, oh, I can laugh at cancer because I don't care about cancer. I can laugh at famine, I don't care about famine. They get the joke about cancer and famine because it's not close to them. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. They understand. They know that. They understand the joke. When it comes to theirs, they can't see the wood for the trees because, the emotive nature of it overpowers their logic in that thing. And we're all the same. I'm no different. So it's very difficult to explain to people about equal opportunity offence. And the other thing is, when you're talking about offence, people assume you've taken the stance that yes, it was offensive, and this is why I can be offensive. Very often I'm saying no, it isn't offensive. You find it offensive doesn't mean it is offensive. I'm arguing this is not offensive. I'm arguing that this is right on. This is politically correct. This joke is politically correct. You just haven't understood it. So again, there's loads of reasons why you can and can't defend yourself. It depends on the joke and the accusation.
I suppose I wouldn't mind asking you about your support for animal causes. You do a lot to promote these. You're very anti-hunting, and I suppose my question is, why focus on these things when children are starving? Why don't you care about starving children, Ricky?
Right. Okay. Well, that's a point in the show where I say about, I'll do something. See, people want to be heard on Twitter. It just amplifies them. They want to be heard. Okay. And this is a way to be heard. It's like anything. It's like any offence, any complaint. When I had a normal job, if someone complained, if I called them back and spoke to them, they'd go, oh yeah, no, I just wanted to say, don't worry about it. They couldn't believe they got a call back. Some people just think no one listens to me. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, a complaint. Again, before Twitter, you saw something on the BBC, you get out a pen or paper and go, dear BBC, I can't be fucking bothered.
You have to buy a stamp for a start.
Yeah, exactly. Right? So Twitter, you fire it off, disgusting. And then someone's, what? Who said that? It's like, it's shouting out of a window. It doesn't make it more important. It just makes, it's like, Twitter is like reading every toilet wall in the world. You don't have to. You can walk away. And so, you're referring to when I say something as clear and distinct as, anti-animal cruelty. You think no one can argue with that. Well, yes, they do, because they want to be heard. People jump in the way of a bullet and say, why are you shooting at me? Right? Because they take things personally. And often someone will say, what about I do ban bullfighting, and someone will go, what about the kids in Syria? Right? And they're basically saying, I thought of something too. Or why are you getting all the attention? Or I've got a better word. You can't win. It's like I go back and go, why don't you care about cancer? Well, I do. Well, why didn't you put it in that tweet then? It's ludicrous. It's crazy to worry about. You're doing something, but they've thought of something else. Well, yeah. But as I say, I'm not giving you a choice. I'm not saying. You've got to throw that kid back in the hole. There's a bullet. You don't run out of compassion. It's like people think that because you care about one thing, you don't care about the other thing. Well, no, you can care about loads of things at once, but there's only so many things you can talk about in one tweet, right? And often people say things like, I've never heard you talk about that. I scroll back, I find a tweet, I go, I did hear, and they go, oh, right, I missed that. Well, of course you did. Why would you be sitting just reading my tweets, going to a forensic laboratory? They don't really care. They just think they've got you, or they just want to. They want to be part of your causal web. They're hecklers. That's what a heckler does. He thinks no one listens to me. If I shout out, react, I was alive. It's the equivalent of putting your handprint on a cave wall 10,000 years ago. But heckling and disrupting a show is like shouting, I was here. That's all it is. But I embrace it because, I use it as another research tool. So, I'm all for Twitter, really.
Are you someone then who would identify as a vegetarian now, someone who tries to be mostly vegetarian? What's your relationship with eating animals?
I'd be a pescatarian. So
right,
I eat fish,
just fish.
Because, in fact, I'm nearly a vegan that eats fish because I can almost justify, a nice wild fish getting line caught more than I do some things in the farming industry. I think it's there is a scale of morality. There definitely is. It's worse to torture a chimpanzee for fun than tread on an ant. And so I think it's morally better for a person to catch and kill a wild fish than it is to torture a cow for its whole life for milk, or torture a chicken its whole life for eggs. So, there is a scale of morality, and even when yes, I'm definitely going towards veganism, and I try and justify everything I eat. There's no real milk in the house anymore. I don't eat eggs, but it's not strict. If I'm out and someone makes a cup of coffee with milk, I'm not going to. I drink it, so I can't claim the moral high ground with that. But all you can do is your best and get better every day, and that's what I've done. I used to eat meat, and the first to go was beef, then pork, then sheep, then chicken.
Yeah.
So the last piece of animal flesh to go is fish, and even then I worry about it being sustainable and ethical. I don't eat endangered species, and there's still a lot of ambiguity about how to live. And if I was a vegan, I'd be an ethical vegan. It wouldn't be about health. It would be about technically I could still eat roadkill, or a pet that died in its sleep.
Yeah.
There's an ambiguity. I don't eat. I don't buy products where there's nut oil, where the rainforest has been So it's, being vegan doesn't solve it, because you can say, well, those nuts killed about 1,000 orangutans. So you're not off, but you're still not off the hook.
It's a game you can't win, really, no matter what you say. Somebody will regress it to a further step till we're all just eating sawdust, I think.
I was discussing this with a guy who still eats meat, a fellow comedian, and I was saying, yes, it's a minefield. I can't eat eggs anymore because they kill all the male chicks, and I don't eat meat because oh my God, they artificially inseminate the cow and they take the thing away. And I go, but even if I was vegan, some vegans don't eat honey, right? And he went, why not? I went, well, because he went, fuck bees. Fuck bees. He must have been getting more and more worked up with me being angsty about these things. And that was the final straw. He went, fuck bees. I went, well, you say that, but you could lose just about every other species before bees, because that would be the end of the earth.
Yeah, there's pollination
we are
gone.
all fucked.
Yeah.
We've got nothing without bees.
I tried this because I really missed eggs, and I thought, I've got a solution here. What I'll do is I'll get some rescue hens, battery hens from the farm, and I'll treat them as pets and love them, and then cook their eggs. And then I got told, well, I'd still have to pay for them, so technically I'm still paying into the factory farming system by offering money for them to the farm. So I can't win. I can't eat anything.
No, you can't win. But you can't win because even if I was vegan, I have a cat.
Yes,
so I have
same.
to get it cat food, and I'm buying into the farming industry.
Yeah.
So you can't. But all you can do is do your best and feel better about yourself and save the world a little bit. That's all you can do.
Yeah, sure. And especially someone with your platform talking about it's going to influence people to make changes too. So. Well,
exactly. And again, you start by saying I'm anti-hunting. Well, again, there's an ambiguity there, because I'm anti-trophy hunting because it's some moron killing an animal for no fucking reason, for a trinket. Fuck off, right? And I'm anti any blood sport. What you like to see a fox ripped apart by you're a fucking psychopath.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
But again, someone who goes out and a clean kill on that is more ethical than some people who go to the supermarket and buy these poor chickens for £2 who've been in darkness for 3 months, plumped up, been eating each other. It's fucking, again, there's a level of cruelty, and it's not clean. I mean, obviously, if you are vegan, you're nearly out of the woods. You're pretty much on the moral high ground there, and but yeah, but still, it sort of there's loopholes. There's a minefield out there. What you can do and can't do to be a good person. But yeah, it's a tough one.
It is. Last thing I want to ask you then before I let you get back to your evening is Trump. It's one of them things that it's almost too easy, and I mean, at times you think I'm just going to leave. I mean, imagine that you're thinking between the president and yourself that I'll be the bigger man. That's the situation we're in. But yeah. It's become impossible. American politics, hasn't it? It's becoming impossible to ignore.
I honestly, I get up now. I wait for him to wake up and tweet, and then I go to Seth Abramson and wait for him to wake up and tweet. Who's this? An attorney, I think he was a defence lawyer for 10 years, now he's a professor of law somewhere, and he breaks everything down for people. His threads are like little novels. So he says why this is wrong and what the lawyer's thinking and it's fascinating. I wasn't interested in politics till this year, and now I'm obsessed with it. And it has, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, it's made, I thought the world was a fun place, and then I die. But it's like having a wayward parent. You suddenly have to think, well, I'm in charge of the house then, because this guy's going to burn the fucking house down. I've got, it's like, yeah, it's mad, it's crazy. But Mueller is is on his way. He knows what he's doing. I think that this isn't going to end as well for Trump as he thinks it is. We'll see. But he's I mean, what a man of integrity, Mueller. You know, imagine if he was on Twitter every day going, "I just found something else out about Trump. I'll tell you about it tomorrow." Imagine that, right? Because that's exactly what Trump does. I remember when he first took office, one of his first tweets was, "Got a very important meeting today." I was going, that's like
that's the job.
Like when an 8-year-old puts his dad's hat on and carries his briefcase round, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you go, "Where are you going, young man?" "I've got a very important meeting." "Have you? Eat your gummy bears first." You know, it's unbelievable.
It's like he's actually won the game in a sense, but he's still seeking that respect me, you know, acknowledge my importance, and he's the president of the United States. It's incredible how thin-skinned that man is.
He is a child, though.
Yes.
He is a child. It's like he's had his own way all his life. He was born into privilege. You know, never really had to do anything. Enabled by his dad, supported. He's a bully. He's a 10-year-old bully who says what he likes to the kids and the teachers because his dad bought the gym for the school. It's classic, you know, and he thought he could do anything. And I was beginning to think he can. I was beginning to think, where is this going to end? You know, I can imagine the FBI going up to him and saying, "Oh, we found out you did all this stuff and we're going to arrest you." And he'd go, "No." And they go, "Sorry?" He'd go, "No, I'm not. I'm not." I go, "Oh, okay. Well, okay, thanks." Bye. And that was it. And they'd have to go back and go, "He's not coming to the jail? He's not what? He's not, he said he's still president?" "Oh, okay. Well, okay." You know? It was looking like that was going to happen. You know, with his core 33%, it would let him get away with anything just because it annoyed, you know, the Hillary fans. It's like, that's the other thing I talk about in the show, that no one looks at an argument anymore. They look at who's saying it. No one cares about the argument anymore. They see whose side am I on.
To Trump fans, this is just Trump bashing, isn't it? This is nothing more than attacking their hero.
We're lefty liberal snowflakes.
Yes.
We don't count. We'd be dismissed, you know, because I haven't got 32 illegal immigrants living in my mansion. I'm a hypocrite.
Just the 20 then.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to pull you up on your blatant fat shaming of late, which has made people angry, but they're not quite sure why, because the person you're fat shaming seems to be yourself and people are not quite sure how to respond.
Well, exactly. All I've ever said was, I'm getting fat, right? And I did get fat, and now it's happening again because I eat and drink too much and I don't do enough exercise. It's simple science in my case. You know, that's not... and it works for me when I go, "Oh my God, I'm getting too fat and I'm out of shape and I'm sweating and I've got to buy some new trousers and I'm angry with myself and it's all my own fault." That's all I'm saying. And I think traditionally, because I have talked about it, when people say, you know, people make excuses. I say it's glandular. I go, "It's not glandular, it's greed." And they go, "No, it's big bones." "Yeah, big bones covered in meat and gravy." And I do this routine and I say, listen, it's simple science, right? If you take in more calories than you burn off, you get fat. And you have to work at it. You have to do that every day to get fat. In fact, no one gets fat behind their own back. No one wakes up and goes, "Oh, what's happened? I caught fat. I caught fat off someone," you know? So I have said before that the reason you can joke about being fat is because in 99% of cases, it's a choice. It is a choice, you know. I think there's 1% where that it could be glandular or some cancer drugs or whatever. I'm never saying why they ate too much. Of course, people could have terrible problems and they ate too much because they were depressed. Well, I'm not saying that's not a valid thing. I'm saying the scientific reason that you put on weight is because you're taking more calories than you burn off, and then it's stored in a subcuticle layer. That's all I was ever saying. I was doing it cheekily and, provocatively. But no, I don't really fat shame. Also, I don't get fat shaming. It's like you're saying when you're fat. It's not I didn't know. It's not that they go, am I?
That's a surprise.
Why, you're 300 pounds. What? Am I? Yes. When a doctor says you're obese, you don't go, "Oh, stop fat shaming," because you're going to die. You're going to die, right? As Patrice O'Neill has become my favourite comedian after he died. I didn't discover him when he was alive, really. He was amazing. He was big, and he was saying, "I'm going to get diabetes." He said, if someone said to me, he said, "Listen," a doctor said, "if you eat one more cake, you're going to lose your feet." He said, I'd look at that cake and I'd go, I can lose 1 foot. I can work with 1 foot.
Bargaining. It's funny because I herniated a disc last year and I couldn't get to the gym or play football anymore, and so I had this recurring back problem. At the same time, I developed a sort of recurring cake problem as well. So I put on a good 15 pounds, which is not good for me. I have the T-shirt that does not lie. I bought it when I was 17, and I won't throw it out. And if I can't get in that, I know I've packed on the pounds.
I know it's happening. I weigh myself. I know it's happening. I see, and I talk about this in the show as well. I was really skinny till I was 28, and then the next 20 years, my eating years, I ate and I ate and I ate, and then I was at my fattest and most unwell and blobular at 48, and I was lying down one Christmas on the floor, and I was saying to Jane, I'm having a heart attack. And I was palpitating, I was hot and clammy, and because I'd eaten 11 sausages.
Wow.
And
did you have Guinness on the phone?
I was like one of those snakes that swallow a pig whole, and then they're just like a duffel bag, and they're like fucked for a week. Right? And I wasn't having a heart attack, but it panicked me and Jane. I thought, yeah, I've got to work out. And I worked out, and I didn't give anything up. I don't eat meat anymore, but obviously, but I didn't give anything up. And I did it by burning it off, which worked for a while, right? But I was working out like fucking Rocky. Yeah. I was doing like 90 minutes so I could have a bottle of wine and a pizza every night, right? And it sort of worked. But now I still eat and drink too much, but I physically can't do the hour and a half because I'm too fat and old, right? So I'm getting fatter and fatter again. And this time I am going to die. So it is my fault. I know it's my fault. And basically I'm saying I'd rather die fat, eating and drinking what I like, than live longer thin and not eat and drink what I want, which is what people deep down, they make that choice. They do. They sort of know. They make that choice.
You see, I'm in an awkward position now because I don't really want you to die at all. But if this is your last interview, I'm quids in, really, aren't I?
This could be. It could be. Yeah. That I see your point. I know. I do. You can't help but at least think that.
I'm being honest. Got to be honest. I mean, you're someone who you found your success relatively late in life compared to what many comedians found their success in the early 20s, etc.
Yeah.
And are you thinking in terms of the future? Do you think, what, when I reach this age, that's when I'm going to cut this off and start enjoying myself?
No.
Or do you just want to keep working?
Never have. No, I keep working because it's not like work, is it? As long as I'm creating and enjoying it, and I've got something to say. When I don't enjoy it, I'm already... Listen, I was the laziest person in the world when I was really poor. Piss poor, no money, right? Imagine what it takes to get me out of bed now. But as long as I'm having a laugh, yeah, I'll do it.
That's what it's all about.
I try and find loopholes in everything. If I want to do some, I've had the big American interviews. Like, I persuaded them to come over to England to interview me in my house. like a fucking Michael Jackson or someone. No, I am. My tour is like, I just when I released the dates to my tour, I said the Humanity Tour. Come into a city near you. If a city near you has an arena and a 5-star hotel with a helipad. So I am lazy. But luckily, throughout my career, sometimes my laziness has been mistaken for integrity. Because all those things I turned down, people thought, "Wow, this is a man of integrity." No, it couldn't be bothered. Too far away. Fuck it.
There's not a part of you that wants to turn up and do a bit on an do the funny English character on an action movie or some big Hollywood production?
No, I was turning down big Hollywood productions when I first started, because I knew I don't want to spend 6 weeks in a Winnebago to pop up in a costume, because that's not me. Being a comedian, it's fantastic. It's like being a rock star. You can be in a superhero movie. You're basically a body in a rubber suit, right? It's the rubber suit people like, not you. You're told what to say, what to do, where to stand, and what to wear. That's not cool. When you're a rock star on stage, and then you step off and you're a rock star in the limo on the way home. Do you know what I mean? That's really you. And I don't mean the glamour of it. I mean, that's you. That's, and same with being a comedian. You put out there, you spew your heart out. That's you. That's your views. That's what you're saying. That's you. There's no rubber suit needed. I'm dressing up and saying other people's lines and having my fat face and a big movie holds absolutely no value or excitement for me. Coming up with an idea that was mine, that gives me a fucking adrenaline rush. It's the creative process for me, and seeing what thoughts and words, how I can put those out there, and how I can mix them with society. And art, even one as lowly as comedy, is making a connection with strangers. That's all it is. It's creating something for its own sake, for its own joy. And there's nothing like it. Art is man's greatest invention. And by man, I mean men and women.
People kind. Okay, Ricky. Well, I've really enjoyed catching up with you, and I hope you don't leave it as long for your next stand-up, because I truly think you're at your best when it's just you and a microphone. So it's.
Thank you.
I look forward to it, and fuck bees.
Cheers, man.
Thanks a lot, Ricky. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Godless Spellchecker podcast. The podcast is a one-man operation, produced in my spare time away from my day job, and I love making it for you. If you enjoy what you hear, please consider lending some support. The show is entirely listener supported. I don't sell anything, I don't run ads, and given the alternative and unpopular focus of my content, it's very unlikely to find a sponsor. So there are a number of ways you can support and chip in and help improve the show and give me more time to produce more content. You can become a patron supporter and pledge a monetary amount per month or per episode by visiting patreon.com/gspellchecker. If you can't lend monetary support right now, don't worry, there's other ways you can help the podcast too. You can share it on your various social media networks, or take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to it. Your support is massively appreciated. Thank you. Think we've all learned something here today?